Hi everyone, today I've got a fashion analysis and some drafting guides for gusset sleeves for you. I'm gonna look at 4 types of gusset sleeves which are all drafted slightly different to show you a sort of scope you can achieve with gusset sleeves, and I'm also gonna show you some little drafting pattern guides so you know how the gusset actually works on each one. And I'm also going to show you a little tip to make putting your gusset in a bit easier for beginners. First try, second try, third try, lucky. So let's have a look at some gusset sleeves. I'm going to start just with a basic gusset sleeve, just to sort of show you how you can make really subtle changes quite easily. So this is what I sort of think of a typical gusset sleeve. It's I think it might be an Australian designer, Pat Hartley, but you can see it's got a beautiful rounded, really well fitted shoulder. It's all cut from one sleeve. And then you can see there's just a bit, like a few sort of creases here, and that means it's cut quite close. It's quite a close gusset, and then there'd be like that diamond shaped there. You can also see it's cut on the bias, I think, from the look of the tweed, which means this area is, and around the shoulder, should really cling to your shoulders and be really nicely fitted. And that's done with a basic bodice block, basic sleeve, quite straightforward, and we just added lots of really nice details. I'd actually like to do a drafting tutorial about at some point because I'm not 100% sure how I'd finish it all off. By comparison, you can see this Balenciaga, so it's a gusset, but they've done it with really wide A-line swing top. And what I love about this top is, can you see how big the gusset is? You can actually see the point of the gusset diamond poking out at the bottom. So that again means you got a really nice tight fit. You can see some creases there, but if you think how close she's holding her arm and how much volume you have, so it's still a fantastic fit. You can see the shoulders really good there. So that's the same gusset, just done with different bodies, and the look is completely different. And Balenciaga did quite a lot where he's done a gusset sleeve and then a really oversized bodice, and I think that works really well, because if you then had a dropped shoulder or something, for example, with a big sleeve, that can look quite sort of oversized or a bit like a bathrobe, while this way you get the really nice curved fit on the shoulder. So basically above your bust it's still really fitted, and then it just becomes really oversized underneath. By comparison, I just wanted to show you our favorite Claire McCardle dress, just because I assumed this was a gusset, just because it's nicer for fit. But when you actually start looking at it, and can you see she hasn't really got her arms at a slight angle, so it's quite away from the bodice, so she's not holding it close. But can you see both all the excess volume here, there the seam, because the seam goes here, and that's where all the volume is, and also all the wrinkles there. So I think it's either a dolman sleeve, or it could be a really small gusset as well, not 100% sure, but it basically isn't as fitted as I thought it would be, which is quite surprising. And that's like a really good way of working out whether it's a dolman sleeve or a gusset sleeve. It's a dolman sleeve, you will get more of these wrinkles underneath. I just wanted to quickly draw you the Pat Hartley and the Balenciaga just to compare them. So the Pat Hartley has a really simple one-piece collar, very flat, so it hasn't got much of a stand. I've probably drawn it slightly too standy. And then it's got the sleeves with a really nice cuff detail. It's basically a really simple dress, and they've just put on really nice details to make it interesting. And then underneath here you've got your gussets, and then it sort of goes into the waist with the belt, which I'm not sure is part of it. And what's really interesting then, it has got something like a button stand. So the seam is to the sides. I think that's her bust point here, and this is one bust point. And can you see this seam is stitched to just about here, and then it actually opens up and it becomes a pleat. And then from here there's another pleat. So I don't know, and actually I need to look up where this goes, whether it just comes from your bust area or if it actually becomes a seam. But either way, it's of quite an interesting detail how it's done. So there would be like a little hidden hook underneath, and that's how you get in. And when this is open, and then underneath there's probably something like the facing is underneath. So it's quite clever how it's done. And then below, again, like the skirt part, it's got that really nice pleat here and here, and it's actually, I think it's just like a dart pleat. So it's just the dart to make it fitted, worn as a pleat. And then it's got these sort of quite chunky pockets with a separate I've just forgotten the name of it. The edge is separate. It's not sorry, it's not a suit pocket, but it's got the same method basically. So this is a separate panel, and they've added a little bit of volume into the pocket. So they slashed it open, and that gives you a really nice taste. And the Balenciaga by comparison is, I'm not 100% sure because it's an old photograph, so you can't see the detail. It would work as both a shawl collar or a one-piece collar. If it's a one-piece sort of shirt collar, just somewhere here there would be a seam. But apart from that, they both sort of, again, it's a quite flat, quite a sort of spread out collar. And then what's quite clever is, I haven't drawn it very well, it's either got a button stand or, a keyhole, or it's actually got a little, it looks here like it's got a little overlap, so it's sort of, it's cut into there, and then they've actually added another little button stand. So it's quite a beautiful collar actually for looking so simple. And then again, it's just got really simple sleeve, quite fitted, and I think they might go out slightly at the cuff. And then you just got that massive A-line oversized shirt, which I think you can actually see the pocket bag here. So I think it might hit at your hip bone roughly, and this would make this gusset nearly to the waist. So I think it's a really, I've drawn it slightly less, I think it's really fitted. So I think the pattern for here looks something like that. If it's a shawl collar, it'd actually be really clever, because this would be your shawl collar folding line, and that's your shawl collar. This is your center front, and then it's just sort of slit into here, that becomes your collar. Then this is your hem. Then it sort of goes up quite a lot. I think it's basically the bust dart moved into volume, and maybe also a little bit of a shoulder dart moved into there as well. And then this is your shoulder, and then your sleeve is something like this. And what I really like about it, it's nearly a no waste pattern. If you plan it well, and this could become your gusset shape, and then here you could cut out the facing for your collar if you want to tune your cuff. So it's very Balenciaga, very clever. But this one is just our normal normal gusset, and I think because this is so A-line style and then really fitted, the gusset just becomes really big because you overlap. Because if that's your center front and you twist it out, and then you've got quite a collar, quite a fitted sleeve, it suddenly becomes really overlapped. So I think it's something like mad like that. Be quite interesting to see in real life. But these are the classic gusset shapes. So I just want to now show you slightly more special one. This one I really liked because first of all I loved the little pleated detail at the collar. If I can enlarge it. Because it's quite similar to one of the dolman style collars. I'm actually gonna make drafting tutorial for that this month. So this is a geometric one, and this is great because it's easier to make. Because I want to show you quickly one thing with the, let's move back one thing. There's a normal gusset. On your normal gusset you have this, I was talking about how your seam allowance basically becomes nothing, and it's quite tricky to stitch. If you think I don't really fancy it, one thing you can do is, I've just copied it quickly, is rather than this become your cutting line, you change this into your seam allowance line. So you cut into it, but then you actually say my real line I'm gonna stitch it to is something like this. And that allows you to then stitch much easier with 1/2 centi seam allowance, and you can literally go all the way around. Even the corner won't be that tricky, it'll be much easier to make. And then of course you can actually, rather than it being a straight, you would make your seam allowance like this. So that's a really good method of doing it when you're a beginner. And then all you have to do when you do your gusset shape, you have to make it slightly wider. So you can either actually cut it apart and then sort of move them apart a little bit. So play around, you want to have a sort of compromise, but you make it a bit bigger and without becoming too long, or you actually curve these a bit. But that's worth an experiment to make your stitching much easier, because I do appreciate it's quite tricky. It's not something I do when I'm in a rush. You sort of need to sit down and breathe slowly and work up to make a gusset. So now back to some more analysis. This is a really nice style because they turned the gusset into a detail at the front. So rather it's sort of being hidden, it actually takes then center stage. So you're sort of saying in a way, I spent all the time drafting it and making it its waist to hide it. So it becomes a detail, which is really nice. And it's got a typical 1940s, 50s collar that sort of slightly grows up your neckline. And it's super easy to draft. If this is your center front, this is your neckline, you just sort of extend it and go up a bit. And then on the back, if that's your back, these are really little drawings, you just go up the same amount and then just trace your center back neckline. But I'm going to show you on the drafting tutorials. But it's basically really easy to draft. It takes a little bit of care for fitting, because I always find when I draft it, it doesn't fit close enough to my neck or how I want it to be. Because of course the block only goes to that neckline and that's not actually where your neck is. So it's a really fitted dress. And then what's really clever is rather than the little triangle being there, they turned the gusset into a style line detail. And then you can see it's got center front line. Then all your shaping from the bust goes in here and then down. So you're basically getting rid of your bust darts and changing them to style lines and adding your gusset to it. And the way it looks like is like this. I've done it curved rather than angular, but it works the same. So can you see I've gotten rid of, this is both my waist dart and my bust dart. So that gets stitched shut like this. And then I stitch it shut like that up to here. But then on that point you twist it round and you stitch it like this. And then you stitch your side seams and sleeve as usual. But what it basically enables you is to get the really nice fit, but all the volume we've lost by overlaying it, we're basically making it back by extending both the bodice part and the sleeve part. And if you'd like a tutorial on it, I'm very happy to maybe do it in the live tutorial because it's quite straightforward. But really clever. And then it's of course really easy to stitch because you've got a really nice triangle here. So you can just stitch it in there and fit it and you still get the same movement, but much easier. And I actually really like it as a detail as well. And what they've done really cleverly, so you got your V-neck, then we've got the gusset sort of V shape, and then they've created a third element, which is a pleat. So you sort of get just these sort of small, bigger, biggest, which is imaginary, and then it goes all to your waist, so it all draws it in. So it gives you that 50s or late 40s hourglass shape, and then it's got a self belt. And then what they've done really nice, I think this must be quite Dior inspired, I think. It might even be a Dior, I couldn't see it, it looked just like a, but it's heavily Dior influence, I think. But they've done really cleverly. This is just a normal A-line shape skirt, I think, but they've created pleats to give it that Dior silhouette, which is La Cigale as well, in that really nice dress. So by having two pleats, you turn something which would just be an A-line skirt into something with a bit more volume. And of course it might have had some padding underneath or a little petticoat just to lift it up. I mean, you can see at the back it's just a normal A-line skirt with a dart to give it that sort of out and flared shape. So I thought that was really clever and actually for Gusset quite easy to make. So what's not to like? Let's have a look at the last special Gusset I wanted to show you just to see how you can adapt it again. This is a Givenchy from, well, I think it's from the 60s because it is from Audrey Hepburn's Charade film. And I think it's a very iconic film and coat. And a lot of you have either been inspired to make it or making it at the moment, which I thought was a lovely coincidence. What I love about this coat, at first just looks like a sort of normal, slightly fitted at the very high waist, but straight coat. But once you start looking at the detail, you notice lots of really nice things. So it's got quite wide button stand with really chunky buttons, which is a nice detail. Black maybe, or a horn. And then it's got a classic roll collar. And I think I'm right in saying that, you can tell me if I'm not, that Jackie Kennedy really loved Givenchy stuff, but she couldn't wear it when she was First Lady because you had to wear American designers. Have I made that up, or is that true? And so, but you can see, you can imagine Jackie Kennedy wearing that, can you? But it's really padded, so it works really well. I wonder whether, because it's probably quite a nice wool, where we just put another layer in or something, or like some sort of soft felty stuff, and then just sort of tailor stitched it, sort of hand stitched it. And then you've got your typical gusset sleeve, but they've turned it into something quite special. I'm going to just draw the outline first and then draw in all the details. So it's got a really high waist, because this is her bust point there, and you can see it's not that far down, and then it sort of goes, it's very French, very stylish. It looks something like that for oval silhouette. What's clever now is that they've moved the shoulder seam and the seam which goes at the top of the armhole slightly forward, which again gives you a really flattering silhouette, because it takes the bulk away from the top of your body and moves it forward slightly. So you got a really nice rounded shoulder. What you have to do with that is, to do that, you have to do that before you actually make your gusset. So before you do all that, you actually have to take that off and add it to the back. And when you make your dolman sleeve, you actually have to adapt it again, but you make the back slightly bigger at the front. So normally we do all our adaptations on the pattern. This time you actually have to do some stuff beforehand. You have to adapt the pattern, the blocks you're using. But once you've done that, you do exactly the same as usual. But then what's really clever, rather than having our gusset, she has a seam here, which probably goes just below maybe the notch on your armhole, and then that continues to flow down the sleeve, and that basically acts as a gusset. But again, it's much easier to stitch than the diamond. So the way the coat, I'm gonna actually do it on red so you can see it properly. I hope you could see the other one. The way it works is, it looks like this. And then it's got another seam there and the seam here. But what they've done is, when you cut it apart, you have all this volume. So we've basically transferred our gusset from a diamond shape into volume in the bottom part. So when you're not wearing it, will have some excess volume underneath, but from the front it looks really smooth. And as soon as you lift up your arm, it gives you all that excess volume, so you can actually lift up your arm. So it's a really easy way of doing a gusset. Really easy to stitch, because all you stitch is just this long line, and then you do your side seam. And I've done it as a sort of quite shapy one, but of course you can make it tighter. It's up to you. And then the rest of it is quite straightforward. It's got another button here, another button here, and another button here. And as I said, this is a really high waist. I think so anyway. And then from the bust point, just underneath the bust point, you've got a seam here and here seam. So you got these seams, and then you got these seams. So it structures your body really nicely. And then you've got pocket bags here and here. Can you see there's little pockets there? And then actually we have done a little bit more fitting here. So I wonder if they maybe taking a little bit, where they done something to the, I don't know, I drew that badly, where they done something, where they actually played by interrupting it, by cutting it up again, where you can actually turn part of that again into a seam so that excess volume is distributed more. It'd be interesting to find out when you're drafting it. But I think that's all the cut. The one thing I wasn't 100% sure is whether there's a little dart here. Well, I might need to have a look at some more images, but that might be another little dart here. If there wasn't a dart, this seam would do some of the bust shaping, and then it would be a relaxed sleeve fit, so it'd be slightly looser. So like our relaxed bodice block, but a hybrid version. So these are the 4 gusset sleeves I wanted to show you, and what I will do is put the Givenchy, the geometric one, and the Balenciaga up for a vote for you, and then I will draft your favorite with all the nice details to it as well. But that's it for me for today. Bye!